Good evening. You're watching Global Lens. I'm Shweta Kothari. Our top headlines at this hour. Kash Patel is likely to be the new FBI director as Christopher Wray announces resignation before Trump takes charge. US President-elect Donald Trump invites China's Xi Jinping to attend inauguration ceremony in January of 2025. Xi Jinping yet to respond. The tomb of ousted Syrian President Bashar al-Assad's father, Hafez, torched in his hometown of Gaza. South Korean opposition parties submit a new motion to impeach President Yoon. Impeachment vote likely on Saturday. Yoon vows to fight till the end. Ceasefire, India votes in favor of the resolution. Biden commutes roughly 1,500 sentences and pardons 39 people in the biggest single-day act of clemency. A special court in Islamabad indicts former Pakistan Prime Minister Imran Khan and his wife Bushra Bibi in the new Toshakhana case. And those are the top stories we're tracking here on Global Lens. I'm Shweta Kothari, and our news story coming in by the way of Trump's pick for FBI. The director of Federal Bureau of Investigations, Christopher Wray, will resign from his position before the second term of United States President-elect Donald Trump. In a statement released by the agency on Wednesday, Wray cited a desire to keep the agency out of a prolonged dispute with the incoming president, who takes office on 20th of January. Now, Wray has been a top target of Trump in recent years, with the former president citing the FBI's involvement in several investigations into his conduct. This includes an August 2022 execution of a search warrant at Trump's Mar-a-Lago estate in Florida, in which agents gathered evidence for an eventual federal indictment related to hoarding classified White House documents. The resignation will pave the way for Kash Patel, Trump's controversial pick to take over the agency, although his appointment will still require Senate confirmation. Now, Trump had already all but confirmed his plans to fire Wray, whose 10 years appointment at the role of FBI director was set to end until 2027. Now, Trump nominated Patel, who had previously served as a national security aide and has remained an ally of the former president earlier this month. Trump called him a brilliant lawyer, investigator, and America First fighter who has spent his career exposing corruption, defending justice, and protecting the American people. Patel has been a furious critic of the FBI. In his memoir, Government Gangsters, Patel called for eradication of government tyranny within the FBI by firing the top ranks. Now, the appointment has sparked concerns, including from within the Trump's own Republican Party, about Patel's fitness for the role of FBI director. Now, Patel regularly issued blatant threats to prosecute political opponents and investigators who have probed Trump, and has pledged to purge the FBI of a deep state, a conspiracy phrase referring to the belief that secret networks of power are embedded within the government. We are, of course, discussing all of that, but let's first quickly listen into the outgoing director of FBI.
After weeks of careful thought, I've decided the right thing for the Bureau is for me to serve until the end of the current administration in January and then step down. My goal is to keep the focus on our mission, on the indispensable work each of you is doing every single day. And in my view, this is the best way to avoid dragging the Bureau deeper into the fray while reinforcing the values and principles that are so important in how we do our work. Now, it should go without saying, but I'm going to go ahead and say it anyways. This is not easy for me. I love this place. I love our mission, and I love our people. But my focus is, and always has been, on us and on doing what's right for the FBI.
All right, and with that, Kash Patel, the Trump nominee for FBI director, is one step closer to realizing his dream. On the show with us is Dr. Amlendu Misra, Professor of International Politics, Lancaster University, UK, live from London right now. Dr. Misra, I think it's now clear that the outgoing, FBI director says that I do not want my relationship with Trump to really affect the agency, and therefore I must leave.
Well, what has happened here is that FBI is a poison chalice. The way it has conducted itself in the last 4 years, it has become a handmaiden for the outgoing presidency. And there's no doubt that if Trump was going to come back to power, he was going to go with all his guns blazing after the top brass of FBI. So it was an open secret. And although Mr. Wray has been talking about not undermining the agency, so I can't see any reason why the new director is not going to go for not only just Wray, but others who have been supposed to have involved in undermining Trump's interest in the last 4 years.
And he's Christopher Wray is, of course, one of them who seem to have undermined Trump's interest. But Kash Patel, a very interesting choice, has been extensively talked about. And he is somebody who really raises concerns within the quarters of, people who are close to Trump, as well as Republicans, because of his choice of words, his speeches that he's given in the past, and really what a lot of people see as somebody who stands up for Trump no matter what, and could really push the boundaries of FBI as a federal agency.
Well, let's step aside for a moment and let's not imagine that Kash Patel was there as the incoming FBI director. Yes, it doesn't mince his words, and he would continue doing what he has been doing, irrespective of whether he's being chosen by the Senate to become the next FBI director or not. He doesn't have an agenda, but he is fiercely loyal, and he has got a specific ideology, worldview, and he fights for it. And that is something which gels very well with Trump's own outlook and worldview. So it is a match, and they both say that there is a deep state, and whether we agree with it or not, it has undermined the system in a large way. All the cases against whether it was correct or incorrect, we are not going to get into that, but the manner it has been used to go for political witch hunt is definitely was going to come back and haunt the current administration. Now, since it's going, Mr. Wray has no way but to leave. And at the same time, he's not the only person who will be implicated. There will be several others. So heads will be rolling.
And let's talk a little bit about Kash Patel. He's somebody whose parents are Indian immigrants, and therefore a lot of interest here among Indians on what kind of person he's going to be and whether he will take the Indian agenda forward. Now, so far, all that we have heard, all that is in public, all we know of, Kash Patel to be, he is a man who has served his country, America in this case, as a lawyer for the longest time. He was actively a part of Trump administration in 2019. He was one of the national security advisors and then went on to take up different roles. Will be coming back, and if at all passes through the cabinet, he would resume and take over as the director of FBI. All of this, at no point does it feel like he will be somebody who could take the India cause forward.
Well, unfortunately, although we might have a lot of high-ranking politicians in the past who have Indian origin, they haven't necessarily done an awful lot for India. And the outgoing Vice President Kamala Harris is a case in point. She sort of goes to extreme lengths to talk about her growing up years in Tamil Nadu, her love for idli and dosa and what have you. But that hasn't necessarily materialized in terms of actual help for the mother country, so to speak. So I'm not expecting quite a lot, an awful lot for that matter, from Kash Patel if he does become the next FBI director. Let's not forget that he is an extremely conservative politician. He has conservative views and outlooks, and that is not necessarily going to sort of make way for interest of other countries. For example, India. He's not going to prioritize the interest of India over United States.
Okay.
Let's forget that.
Okay, so one has to be clear that the Indian connection there may not be of great importance when it comes to his priorities. But Dr. Misra, I have to ask you, does Kash Patel bother you as a choice for FBI director? His past statements, his record, does it bother you at all? And the fact that he said that he wants to get, rid of the deep state, the top ranks within the FBI, does those statements bother you?
Not at all. I mean, he's not saying something entirely different. His boss, or would-be boss, Mr. Trump, who will be the next president, who will be taking over very shortly, has never sort of minced his words. He has been talking about the deep state and how the deep state has been undermining his interest and the interest of the Americans. So they are sort of singing from the same hymn sheet, both Trump and Kash Patel here. So it doesn't bother me at the slightest, because in some ways, at least one is aware of what is there. It is better to know the devil you know than the devil you don't. So that is the reason why his background, Kash Patel's background, would prepare policymakers, politicians, and whoever wants to engage with the United States to be on a better footing so far as moving forward.
All right. And before I let you go, there is, of course, a Senate confirmation waiting there. What is your understanding on whether Kash Patel will pass through that exam and Senate will confirm him as the new FBI director?
Well, I mean, all the picks of President Donald Trump so far have been controversial. And somehow or the other, they have managed to sort of scrape through. And I would imagine, within the Republican senators, there is a lot of disquiet in terms of Trump's choice of Kash Patel being the next FBI director. So there will be a lot of lobbying that will go on. And Mr. Patel already has been conversing with all the senators there. So it's just a matter of time. And if push comes to shove, I would imagine that Mr. Trump would flex his muscle and say that you have to accept my nominee and we have to let him come in. So there will be a lot of horse trading that will go on behind the scenes. We won't know about it. But I have a feeling that Trump knows what he wants, and Trump knows that his choices are controversial, but nonetheless, he wants to plow through it like a bulldozer, and that is exactly what is going to happen.
All right, and Trump, of course, making those controversial choices, is likely to push through for the nominations and the nominees he's elected for his new cabinet. Dr. Misra, thank you very much for taking time out for joining us on the show today.
My pleasure. Thank you.
And President-elect Donald Trump has extended an unexpected invitation to Chinese President Xi Jinping for his inauguration in January. The invite was sent right after 5th of November election as per sources. However, Xi's response remains unknown. If accepted, it would mark an unprecedented moment, China's leader attending the inauguration of a US president.
US President-elect Donald Trump on Wednesday invited Chinese President Xi Jinping to attend his inauguration in January. That's according to a CBS News report on Wednesday. It said that Trump invited Xi right after the November 5th election, but it's unclear if he accepted. It would be unprecedented for the leader of China, a major US rival, to attend a US inauguration. The Chinese embassy in Washington did not immediately respond to a Reuters request for comment. Trump said in an interview with NBC News last Friday that he and Xi got along very well and recently communicated. However, he has picked several China hawks for key posts, including Senator Marco Rubio as Secretary of State. Trump said he will add a 10% tax on Chinese goods if China doesn't do more to stop the illegal trade of the drug fentanyl. He also warned of higher tariffs, over 60% on Chinese goods, during his campaign. In November, China warned of a possible trade war if Trump makes good on his campaign pledge to raise tariffs.
And our next story is coming from Russia. Syrian rebel fighters have destroyed the tomb of late President Hafez al-Assad, father of ousted President Bashar, in family's hometown. Videos show armed men chanting as they walked around the burning mausoleum in Kardaha in the northwest of coastal Latakia region. The rebels, led by Islamist group Hayat Tahrir al-Sham or HTS, swept across Syria in a lightning offensive that toppled the Assad dynasty's 54-year rule. Now, Bashar al-Assad has fled to Russia, where he and his family have been given asylum. Statues and posters of late President Hafez and his son Bashar have been pulled down across the country to cheers from Syrians, celebrating the end of their rule. A fundamental question therefore prevails. Will Syria transition from a secular dictatorship to a stable representative government, or hardline Islamist authoritarianism, or something in between? Remember, Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, which spearheaded Bashar al-Assad's downfall, arguably remains the strongest opposition force in Syria, yet it is listed as a terrorist group by the United States, European Union, Turkey, among other nations. In fact, the US has a $10 million bounty on HTS leader Abu Muhammad al-Jolani, a former Islamic State fighter, despite attempts to rebrand himself and his group as mainstream Islamists. So far, HTS has been preaching political moderation, inclusion of minorities, but its iron-fisted governance of Syria's northwestern Idlib province points to a need for vigilance in the group's intention and long-term agenda.
Long queues form at a Damascus bakery on Wednesday, one of many signs of Syria's critical economic problems. As the new interim Prime Minister Mohammed al-Bashir said he wanted to bring back millions of Syrian refugees and provide basic services, but would struggle to without foreign currency. Syria's coffers contain only local pounds worth barely anything, Bashir told Italian newspaper Il Corriere della Sera. Bashir ran a rebel-led government in a tiny pocket of northwestern Syria before the 12-day rebel offensive toppled President Bashar al-Assad. In the capital, banks have reopened, as have shops, and there are fewer armed men about. But rebuilding Syria will be a colossal task, following a civil war that killed hundreds of thousands of people. Abu Abed Nasruddin is a merchant in Damascus.
Activity is very good, but the problem we are facing is the currency we deal with. Some people, all of those coming here from Idlib region, Aleppo and their outskirts, brought Turkish lira or dollars with them, but we don't know how to exchange them, so work has become very slow.
International sanctions on the Assad regime have also gutted the economy. Two senior US congressmen, a Republican and a Democrat, wrote a letter calling for Washington to suspend some sanctions on Syria. The most punishing ones are up for renewal this month, and the former rebels have told Reuters they are in touch with Washington about potentially easing them. Bassel Hamwi, head of the Damascus Chambers of Commerce, told Reuters the new government has told business leaders it will adopt a free market model after decades of state control and integrate Syria into the global financial system.
We are witnessing the reshaping of the Middle East, with changes in the correlation of forces among the key regional actors, with the immense tragedy of the Palestinian people, whose right for self-determination and whose right to have their own state must be constantly reaffirmed. But we also see some signs of hope, and signs of hope namely coming from the end of the Syrian dictatorship. The UN is totally committed to supporting a smooth transition of power with an inclusive political process in which the rights of all minorities will be fully respected, and paving the way towards a united, sovereign Syria with its territorial integrity fully re-established.
All right, joining us on the show is Dr. Zakir Hussain. He's an expert on Middle East and research fellow, India Council for World Affairs. Dr. Hussain, thank you very much for taking time out. Rebels forces now destroying the tomb of Hafez al-Assad. People who are trying to rebrand themselves at the same time trying to destroy the past history of Syria. What are you making of these developments?
Obviously, there are two reasons. Number one, Hafez al-Assad, the Sunni majority has grudge against Hafez al-Assad because in 1982 he committed large number of massacre of Sunnis in Homs and Hama, around 20,000 to 40,000 in that mid, because they were uprising and they were demanding regime change or democracy like that. And second, the Latakia is the home of Alawites, where 10% Alawites live. And Latakia was thinking that it may be creating its own state. So the influence of this Hayat al-Tahrir's fighters there shows that they are not ready that any part of the country should be seceded and built a separate state. These two adversaries are giving that this Hayat al-Tahrir is appeasing the majority. At the same time, it is also interested that the country should not be balkanized. But overall, this is not a good sign when they have committed that they will develop an inclusive Syria where every community and region have an equal partnership in the governance. So what I think that if they are not controlling these type of elements, then again there are chances of civil war and chaos in the country, and it may expand further because the foreign forces are more active in terms of creating chaos. While the world has reposited its faith in the current government because there has been a smooth transfer of power from Assad to the new government, more than dozen countries have sent, even the Saudi Arabia and Gulf countries have restored their diplomatic relation, opened their embassies, while United Nations has also said that we are putting Hayat al-Tahrir on a close watch, and if they improve their positions, we will delist the leader of the Jolani from the terrorist and bounties, all these things. But all these developments, what is happening here in Latakia or something like that, they are becoming nostalgic and taking revenge. This is not good for a peaceful, stable Syria, because Syria needs reconstruction.
Dr. Hussain, it does look like more than nostalgia. It does look like an attempt to destroy the history of the country. And I want to specifically talk about Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, because here's an organization which has been branded as a terrorist organization, has sanctions against it from various countries, including the US, European countries at large, and they are the main opposition party who have really led the offensive that led to the downfall of Assad dynasty. Are you of the belief at this point in time that their rebranding has been successful? Because as you pointed out, lots of agencies, including the UN, are now open to negotiations with Hayat Tahrir al-Sham. But, the moot point is, it is a terrorist organization.
The country which has designated is a terrorist organization, the countries. Now they are rethinking on their decision. Even the United Nations States CNN has taken exclusive 10 minutes interview with Jolani. What does it shows? This shows that the country has some liberal things, because they don't want Syria to be destabilized or balkanized. This is not in their interest. So the world wants to give Syria a chance, and this group has shown some resiliency in that direction. If it is proving that it is going to shun its old habits, though it is very tough to shun old habits die hard, but what they can do of Syria, if they are not giving the largest party, largest group to hold Syria will plunge into chaos, and it will be balkanized. And this is not good for the regional stability and peace, because Syria is the cockpit of geostrategic politics of the Middle East, of the Gulf region. If its issues are expanded beyond its border, it will affect Turkey, it will again affect Lebanon, it will affect Saudi Arabia, and it will spread like anything. Chain reaction will take. Okay. So on the other hand, Israel is also there. It is trying to fish in the troubled water and grabbing more land. So it is very important at this time, if they commit for the last 7 years, they have said that we are not committing any terrorist activities, but in Idlib, they have a strong hand in the ruling administration. So United Nations has said that if you are going to repeat the same type of regime which you have been in Idlib, that is not accepted.
Absolutely.
While,
and you know, we've seen some of that reflection of what HTS is trying to do, as opposed to what, for example, Taliban tried to do with Afghanistan, promised a more liberal regime, but we know of Taliban, and Taliban sticks to what it does. As you rightly pointed out, old habits die hard. In this case, you had a liberal dictator being replaced what we now believe to be an Islamist, fundamentalist, authoritarian regime. Is that something that you're fearful of?
Yeah, everybody is fearful of that one. They don't want Islamist fundamentalist regime, neither police state, because this will not be accepted by the people of the Syria, because they are habitual of living in a secular, secular country. So it is a very tough situation to say that who will take over Syria, because just like if you say that if it is not controlled, then Syria will become another Libya, where faction fightings are going on for the last 10 years, more than 10 years. So this kind of troublesome neighborhood will not be desired by the Gulf countries, Saudi Arabia, which is going to hold World Cup in 2035. And several things are going on in this region, diversification. This needs a peaceful and stable region that can only invite the foreign capital, tourism, all these things. So they are making their last effort to stabilize Syria. Otherwise, they will consider to take some measures, maybe a coalition of military coalition that will take over, that may whatever they want to do, because stability of Syria is very important from Turkey's point of view, from Gulf point of view, from USA point of view. The location, geostrategic location of Syria is very significant because it is bridging Lebanon. If it is going to in the fold of Lebanon, it means that Hezbollah and both are operating each other, and there will be instability in the region.
Right.
If it is going to fall back again, the back policy, then Iran is going to increase in influence again in the region. So to break this resistance forces, it is very important to neutralize Syria, and for this,
Absolutely.
world is ready to forgive this terrorist group.
All right. In fact, Dr. Hussain, I want to talk about the broader implication of Syrian and the downfall of Assad dynasty, and what does it really mean for West Asia. But, after fleeing President Bashar al-Assad's regime, many Syrians abroad are celebrating the demise of the long-time ruler. But as European nations now review their asylum policies, some fear that they will be forced back to the country before it is stable.
Najim al-Musa and his family have been glued to the news of Syrian President Bashar al-Assad's overthrow in their tiny Athens apartment. Although delighted he is gone, Musa now fears his family will be forced to return to the devastated country they fled in 2015.
My children cannot imagine leaving their friends from school one day, or that they would leave their teachers or their area, or that they would go back to Syria. When we talk, they ask, "Daddy, can we really go back to living in these areas?"
He and his wife spent everything on a 2-year journey that took them to Sudan, Iran, Turkey, and eventually Greece. First-time asylum applications by Syrians to the EU were highest in 2015 and 2016, more than 330,000 in each of those years, EU data shows. Applications trebled between 2020 and 2023 after a devastating earthquake and as violence and economic hardship persisted. European countries are now rethinking their asylum policies for Syrians in the light of Assad's downfall. Thousands of applications are now on hold. Musa's Greek residence permit is up for renewal, and the family is worried they will have to go back.
We have no solution but to go back. There's no solution. If they do not renew here, then of course we have to go back to our country. We have no other place to go to.
Thousands of civilians who moved to neighbouring Turkey and Lebanon rushed back into Syria this week, hoping for a peaceful homecoming. Ahmad Abbas, who made Germany home after fleeing 12 years ago, feels an urge to return. But with Syria's future still uncertain, he is unsure if now is the right time.
Maybe someone could say, I'd go back for a week or two. I'll have a look at the country and see if it's okay. Yes, and then if it's okay, then I'll stay. If not, then I'll come back to Germany. Maybe Germany should really send people there, have a look at the country, and then politicians should confirm that the country is really back on its feet. Because right now, there has been no basic law in Syria. Now they have a free country, they want democracy, but I haven't seen any new laws yet.
Hundreds of thousands of people died in Syria's war, which began in 2011 and pitted Assad's army against various rebel groups. Whole cities have been flattened by bombing, the economy is in a dire state, millions fled or are in need of humanitarian assistance.
Dr. Hussain, it does look like the downfall of Assad dynasty has put a lot of people in a flux. They don't know whether to go back, they don't know whether to trust the current regime and whether it's going to be better than what Bashar al-Assad and his father did in Syria. So it's not just a crisis of countries, it's also a crisis of region and of people. It's a humanitarian crisis. But at the same time, I think Syria also puts a lot of its neighbors currently in doldrums, because if Syria is unstable, a lot of its neighbors are not going to be very happy economically as well as geopolitically.
Yes, you know that in 2011, the total population of Syria was 21 million. During 13 years of civil war, half of the population, either 500,000 died, 1 million injured, half of that went outside the country, and half are internally displaced. Around 7.1 million people, Syrians, are living out of the country, and 1.3 are living in Europe, and Germany was the largest. So Germany, France, Britain, Sweden, Austria, they have stopped the processing the asylum application, and even Germany is giving 1,000 euro incentive those who are going back. But here in Syria, the situation is very volatile, number one. Number second, the interim government which has been formed, it said that it will take 18 months to begin the democratic process in the country. While the need to reconstruction of Syria required $250 billion. Immediately $20 billion is required to meet food, health, water, fuel, electricity, education. So from where all these monies are going to come? Though countries are showing their willingness to invest here, but again the political and social atmosphere in the country is not stable. So people are not ready to put money in a sinking ground. Plus, Syria and the leaders who are holding the government, they have to show a very strong commitment for a stable and peaceful and inclusive Syria. Only then money will start coming in. Gulf countries are ready to invest, but Qatar has sent that it is ready to cooperate with the new government. But again, the problem is there is a trust deficit with these people holding the arms in their hand still. So what is required? That first Syrian government, what is it has taken over, it should disarm all the rebel forces and make a united forum. For this, they have outlined 4 points in their interim government. Number one, they have said that they will form an inclusive interim government. Number second, reconstruction, humanitarian assistance, and security system. In security system, they have said that they will include all the fighters belonging to any region, belonging to any group, and formalize as a national defense force. And third, that they are telling that they will ask all the foreign mercenaries, all the foreign powers to go back to their country, leave our country. And
Absolutely.
fourth, they are telling that it will be inclusive, all representative governments.
Right.
Promises are very tall.
Promises are absolutely
very tall. Differences are very much. Challenges are high. Roads are treacherous, and future is uncertain.
Thank you for summing that up, Dr. Zakir Hussain. Thank you for putting it out there for our viewers, trying to really understand what's unfolding in Syria right now.
Yeah, thank you.
When she heard the stunning news that rebels had brought an end to Syria's decade-old regime, Hayat al-Turki headed for a prison that had become known as a slaughterhouse, praying that her brother and 5 more relatives still were alive and held there.
When she heard that rebels had toppled Syria's brutal decades-old regime, Hayat al-Turki went to search for her brother and 5 more relatives at a notorious prison. Sednaya is nicknamed the human slaughterhouse, and Turki knew her relatives had been held there previously. It now stands empty after thousands of prisoners were freed following President Bashar al-Assad's ouster over the weekend. But after 4 days spent wandering its cells and hallways, and sleeping just outside its walls at night, she has yet to find any clues of their fate.
To be honest, I was living in fear and horror because anyone who hears about Sednaya lives with this feeling. But I was hopeful and optimistic to find someone from my missing prisoners, a brother, an uncle, or a cousin. But I did not find them. I searched the whole prison. I enter a cell, not even for 5 minutes, and I suffocate.
Human rights groups say Sednaya is infamous for widespread torture and mass executions. This noose found hanging in a cell is one of many relics of the prison's dark past that have been discovered in recent days. Here, Turki is searching a cell for any trace of her sibling.
Are these my brothers? Do I smell him in them? Or this? Or is this his blanket?
After the prisoners left Sednaya, many were met by tearful relatives who thought they had been executed years ago. But Turki says there is a discrepancy between the thousands that were freed and the number that were supposedly being held, according to these documents, which the 27-year-old found as she looked for her loved ones.
It is not possible that all this equipment and food were for nothing. It is impossible. We are sure that people were here. Who are all these clothes and blankets for?
The main commander of the rebels who toppled Assad has said that anyone involved in the torture or killing of detainees during Assad's rule would be hunted down. However, that has provided little comfort to Turki, whose hopes of finding her brother are slowly fading.
I will show you the photo of my missing brother. It's been 14 years. This is his photo. I don't know what he looks like if I find him. I'm seeing the photo of prisoners getting out. They are like skeletons, but this is his photo. If anyone has seen him, knows anything, or can help us. He is one of thousands of prisoners who are missing. I'm asking for everyone, not only my brother, uncle, cousin, and relatives.
The humanitarian tragedy, of course, in Syria continues to unfold. But with that, it's time for a short break here. We'll be back with more news and stories on the other side. Keep watching Newsline.
Leadership being able to acknowledge and flex and mold and inspire and get the best out of their people.
Unfortunately, there's no holy grail. There can be an organization that's the darling of the markets, doing well, delivering results.
If Shakespeare had been there, I think probably he would have written another tragic comedy.
The wages, the work conditions of these white-collared workers is far better and much higher than those of blue-collared workers.
Unfortunately, that is what I believe has deteriorated and deteriorated big time.
There could be regional offices, there could be country-specific offices where the atmosphere is very toxic, and this is reality.
On human narrative of how corporate India or any corporate world functions, sadly.
So generally in the beginning, when the white-collar jobs were on the rise, it was felt, especially by the white-collar workers, because they were too self-centered, individualistic, and they did not feel the need to come together and bargain for better work conditions, safety at workplaces.
This and more. Streaming on News 9 Plus. Subscribe and get free vouchers.
Welcome back. You're watching Global Lens. South Korea is in the middle of a political storm tonight. President Yoon Suk-yeol says he'll fight to the end as he called for impeachment gain momentum even from within his own party. This all started with Yoon's brief martial law declaration earlier this month, a move that shook the country and sent shockwaves across the world. And now opposition lawmakers, backed by some of Yoon's own party members, are pushing for an impeachment. Now, Yoon isn't backing down. He's pointing fingers at North Korea, claiming that they hacked the election commission, casting doubt on the results of April's elections his party lost in a landslide. But here's the twist. The election commission and even his critics say that there is no evidence of a hack. So, is this a political defense or an act of desperation? The opposition says Yoon's actions have been reckless, with some calling his speech today a display of extreme delusion.
South Korean President Yoon Suk-yeol vowed on Thursday to fight to the end, even as his own party shifted closer to vote to impeach him over his short-lived martial law order last week. Yoon's first comment since he apologized for the martial law declaration on Saturday came in the form of a lengthy televised address.
We must prevent the forces and criminal groups that have led the paralysis of government administration and disorder of national constitution from taking over the state administration and threatening the future of the Republic of Korea, no matter what. I will fight to the end.
Yoon went on to claim without evidence that North Korea had hacked South Korea's election commission, throwing doubt on his party's crushing election defeat in April. Yoon also appeared to defend his decision to declare emergency rule in the first place, referring to the opposition Democratic Party, which has blocked some of his proposals, as criminal groups that must be stopped from taking over government. Again, Yoon gave no evidence of criminal activity. Yoon is hoping his political allies will rally to his support, but after watching his fiery address Thursday morning, the leader of Yoon's own People Power Party responded that the time had come for the president to resign or be impeached by parliament. Meanwhile, Democratic Party leadership said Yoon's address was a, quote, display of extreme delusion and called on members of the president's ruling party to vote to impeach him. Protests calling for Yoon's impeachment continued in the capital Seoul on Wednesday. A second impeachment vote in parliament is expected on Saturday, a week after the first one failed due to a ruling party boycott. South Korean media reported that another of their lawmakers publicly declared support for impeachment on Thursday, bringing the total number to 7. At least 8 People Power Party lawmakers are needed for the 2/3 majority required to impeach Yoon. Even so, the party remains deeply divided, and Yoon continues to have the backing of many of their lawmakers.
The United Nations has made its voice heard in a decisive vote. The General Assembly demanded an immediate, unconditional and permanent ceasefire in Gaza. They're calling on Israel and Hamas to lay down their weapons and release all hostages without delay.
The Assembly is now voting on draft resolution A/ES10/L33 entitled Demand for Ceasefire in Gaza.
The draft resolution A/ES-10/L.33 is adopted.
Gaza doesn't exist anymore. It is destroyed. Palestinians are facing hunger, despair, and death. There is no reason for this war to continue. We need a ceasefire now. We need to bring hostages home now.
And U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken took the stand today defending the U.S. withdrawal from Afghanistan in 2021. He called it the end of America's longest war, freeing resources to address other global conflicts.
I firmly believe the President's decision to withdraw from Afghanistan was the right one.
Secretary of State Antony Blinken again defended the 2021 U.S. withdrawal from Afghanistan, a decision he said freed resources for other conflicts.
I think our adversaries, including Russia, would have been delighted if we had doubled down and remained stuck in Afghanistan for another 20 years.
His testimony before the Republican-led House Foreign Affairs Committee came after a long and heated dispute over when he would testify about one of the darkest incidents of Joe Biden's presidency. 13 Americans were killed in a suicide attack at Kabul's airport in August 2021 during the withdrawal.
And I deeply regret that we did not do more and could not do more to protect them. And to those families who are here with us today, you're in my thoughts.
On Wednesday, Blinken started off by acknowledging Gold Star families of service members killed in the Afghan war, and was interrupted by protesters demanding an end to bloodshed in Gaza.
Committee will come to order. Committee will suspend.
Chairman Michael McCall, a Republican, blasted the administration for the deaths of 13 Americans in August 2021 and for thousands of Afghans who worked with U.S. forces who could not be evacuated as the Taliban took over.
You ignored the warnings of collapse by your own personnel.
Blinken said every American who wanted to leave Afghanistan has been given the opportunity to leave, and thousands of Afghans have been resettled internationally. He added that Washington remains committed to helping those who remain. President-elect Donald Trump has vowed to seek the resignation of every senior official who, quote, touched the Afghanistan calamity.
American troop presence in Afghanistan.
But Democrats have insisted much of the blame for the war's messy end, less than 7 months into Biden's presidency, rests with Trump, who began the withdrawal process by signing a deal with Afghanistan's militant Islamist Taliban in 2020. In previous congressional testimony in 2021, Blinken told lawmakers that Biden could not renegotiate that deal because of threats from the group to resume killing Americans. The chaotic withdrawal from Afghanistan ended America's longest war after 20 years of fighting.
And protests erupted in Georgia over EU talk suspensions. Masked men in black, armed and unrelenting, have taken to the streets targeting opposition politicians, activists and even journalists. Here's the report.
In the streets of Georgia's capital, Tbilisi, a group of masked men attacked journalists from the pro-opposition TV channel during a live broadcast. Just one in a spate of recent attacks reportedly carried out against opposition politicians, activists and some journalists. The violence comes amid protests against perceived Russian influence in the country. This CCTV footage shows an opposition politician being kicked by some masked men. Koba Kabazi is a prominent member of the Coalition for Change opposition party. He was left with extensive head injuries after being attacked inside the building that houses his party's headquarters.
Of course, the government is behind this, a paranormal government that is pathologically afraid of freedom, democracy, pathologically afraid of human rights. The government is built on violence. Violence and tyranny do not coexist with freedom and democracy.
Georgian authorities have denied involvement in the attacks and have condemned them. Violent clashes in the capital Tbilisi between the police and protesters erupted in recent weeks. The opposition says the Georgian Dream Party's victory in an October parliamentary election was tainted by fraud. The ruling party provoked widespread anger when it announced that it was suspending EU accession talks until 2028. More than 400 people have been arrested during subsequent pro-EU protests, including Marina Tereshvili's son. 75-year-old Tereshvili had already lost a son in 1992 at a nationalist rally in Georgia. Now her other son, Georgi, has been arrested. 7 police cars pulled up at her house on Friday, she said, and took her son into custody.
I can't deny that he went to rallies because he has a brother who died on the 2nd of February 1992, and he went there in honor of his soul. My son sacrificed himself for the national movement, independence, and freedom of Georgia. They fought for the sake of this, and my Georgie can't adapt to the situation now.
Georgie was placed in pre-trial detention for 2 months for participating in group violence, according to a rights group and local media. If convicted, the 52-year-old will face up to 6 years in prison. That's part of a broad crackdown on demonstrators who have clashed nightly with police for almost 2 weeks. Rights groups say the crackdown is without recent precedent in Georgia. The country had been seen as one of the most pro-Western and democratic of the Soviet Union's successor states.
And Brazil's Katia Volare stands out amongst mountain climbers across the world as she's scaling the rocky walls of Morro da Urca Hill in Rio de Janeiro, aged 82 years old. Her instructor says that even climbers a fourth of her age don't compare to her strength and form.
With a steady grip, 82-year-old Katia Volare is scaling the rocky slopes of Rio de Janeiro's Morro da Urca Hill. Volare attributes her physical fitness to a consistent diet, regular exercise, and a dose of vitamin C. My health is not achieved through medicines, she says, adding that she takes vitamin C because a doctor told her it would help with wrinkles. Volare says she's been a vegetarian since she was 35. Her climbing instructor, Rafael Rain, says climbers a fourth her age don't compare to her strength and determination.
We bring people here who are 20, 25 years old, and they don't do half of what she does, whether it's posture, leg strength, or even good humor and jokes. She teases me, and I tease her. All of this is part of the process to relax on the wall and take the focus away from fear.
For Volare, she says it comes down to eating well and strengthening your muscles. She adds it's important to push yourself, but always be aware of what you're doing. Challenge nature, yes, but with awareness, she says. I think that's very important.
And the University of Sydney has developed an AI-powered robot which is revolutionizing cattle farming. The robot, named Swagbot, is capable of autonomously herding cattle, monitoring pasture health, and is aimed at enabling farming efficiency, reducing overgrazing, and addressing environmental challenges.
Meet Swagbot, an AI-powered robot that could potentially transform cattle farming. Researchers at the University of Sydney are betting on it to make the industry smarter, greener and more efficient.
Once the cattle are used to the robot, they will follow the robot around.
When Swagbot was first launched in 2016, it was a simple herding robot built to handle uneven terrain. Now packed with sensors, AI and machine learning, Swagbot can check the health, type and density of pastures and even keep an eye on the cow's health. Using data to autonomously herd cattle to the best pastures, it can move them before land is overgrazed and soil becomes degraded. Salas Tukarie, whose team made the Swagbot, is a professor of robotics at the University of Sydney.
You want to move the animals to the right part of the pasture where there's good protein, good carbs, and you don't want them to overgraze, you want them to move to the next part of the pasture. And you want to be able to do that in a very fluid manner without fences and so forth.
Farmers constantly assess how many animals their land can support. However, many have little control over where the animals graze within large enclosed areas. And the issue is that overgrazing can lead to poorer soils that support less plant and animal life.
It allows us to assess our paddocks in real time in a much more detailed way than what you can now.
Erin O'Neill is a part-time farmer who attended a recent demonstration of the robot.
Because that allows us to know what bits of pasture are most nutritious, particularly if you've got cattle like we do who are pregnant and therefore need a higher quality pasture to aid them through that pregnancy bit.
Australia, one of the world's top beef exporters, with about 30 million cattle, faces challenges such as labour shortages, poor pastures and environmental concerns. And Professor Sukarie believes that robotics and automation could be key to overcoming these challenges, making farming more efficient and environmentally friendly.
FIFA on Wednesday announced Saudi Arabia as the host nation for the 2034 Football World Cup. This will be the second time that the World Cup will be played in West Asia, and this news left football fans in Riyadh thrilled. We leave you with this report.
I am 25 years old and never expected, even 1%, that the World Cup would be held in Saudi Arabia. The hosting is truly impressive and will greatly change life in Saudi Arabia.
Thank God we are up for it. We've hosted other tournaments before and we can handle even bigger ones, God willing. We're all as a nation thrilled and happy about this. We're more than capable with God's help.
You remember when someone had hit our car? I had got him to pay up for all the damage.
Yeah, so?
If something goes wrong in this guaranteed return share, I will complain to the exchange and get full compensation. See, there's an agreement.
Dad, you know what? Nobody can promise guaranteed high returns in the share market. Such illegal schemes are sheer fraud. The exchange will not give any compensation for these. That agreement is also useless.
सोच कर, समझ कर, invest कर.
Hello. If your money is fraudulently taken by somebody or a cyber crime takes place with you,
क्या हम कृष्णा दास गुप्ता जी से बात कर रहे हैं?
And you report it to the bank within 3 days of the crime, the bank is liable to pay you 100%. This is clear-cut guidelines.
मैं डिपार्टमेंट से बात कर रहा हूँ.
If you report it within 7 days, the bank is liable to pay you 50%. And